Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar presentation titled Tales from the Field, Help Your Developers Breathe New Life into Your Customer-Facing Teams, brought to you by AnswerHub. I would like to introduce you to today's presenter, Jesse Davis. As Chief Technologist at AnswerHub, Jesse is responsible for guiding the strategic direction of the AnswerHub product and helping customers build the world's largest, most engaging developer communities. Jesse has been building enterprise software and engineering teams for 20 years and is a respected executive, author, speaker, and coach. He developed the first data access for Java and served as an expert and innovator on industry data standards, including JDBC, ODBC, and ANSI SQL. Jesse loves building and growing teams and individuals to reach their full potential. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in computer engineering from North Carolina State University. And now I would like to pass it off to Jesse for his presentation.
All right, thank you so much. Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar. I hope you're as excited as I am to hear some stories about the field and some things that you can do to help your developers engage better with your field team members. Your field's out there killing it every day, trying to help your company grow, and they need your developers to support them. So thanks for coming. Thanks for showing up. I am 100% live right now. So if you're on, you can join the chat, ask questions in your interface over there for the webinar. And if you can't hear me or you can't see me or my slides don't look good or anything like that, please just chat that over to me or Drew. Let us know, and we'll make sure that we take care of that for you. So I want to start out, thank you for the introduction. This is a little bit more about me, less of the high level stuff and more about things that I'm doing. Java is absolutely my favorite programming language. I am 100% nerd. This thing up here is actually Duke from a Java 1 way back in the day, before the turn of the century. I'm that old. So some other things that I'm doing, learning Python with my son who's in college, which is super cool, great language, and also Go lately. And spending a lot of my time trying to help and grow the next generation of developers and technical leaders. There's a lot of problems that we have in the world, and trying to find ways to help these teams work better together, I think is a great way to help solve those issues. So I want to start with the journey that we took. And if you've been at the last couple of webinars, this one's going to be very similar. We're going to tell you a little bit about the research, do a little quick look back, and then look forward, and we'll tell the story of another facet of building great development teams that help their companies grow. So we started off trying to figure out what developers and development teams struggle with. What are their daily struggles? What are the things that are happening in the software industry and in the software market that's causing issues with those companies? And how can we, as leaders and as individual contributors, do a better job working together to move the needle faster in a positive direction, right? COVID set us all back, and we didn't even know COVID was coming when we started this journey, right? We started late 2019, early 2000, right when the pandemic hit. And so we got a lot of information that was very interesting to us throughout that whole process. So as we set about this journey to learn what jobs developers do, what do they struggle with, and how can we solve them, we ran into some things we wanted to share. So hopefully as you look at these things, you'll notice here are a lot of the issues and problems that technical teams are facing. I hope you see some of the things that we've heard reflected in your own company, because this will be a very helpful webinar for you. Whether you lose critical knowledge when developers leave your team or leave your company. They could move to another technical team in the same big company or move to another small company, but that knowledge walks out the door and it's gone forever. You hire developers, it takes them too long to get up to speed. Nothing's written down. What's written down is out of date. We solve problems the same way over and over again, where we should have just, not spent time reinventing the wheel. And the last one, teams in other locations lose productivity waiting on answers, and we're going to cover a little bit of that today. But if you see some of these issues and you can identify with them, we want to make sure that not only do we give you a little bit of a story, but also some solutions that we believe you can implement to help these things go away. So if you look at field teams, right, this is Tales from the Field. So I'm going to tell you some field stories, and these stories, the names are changed to protect the innocent. And I want to start by saying, your field team is really everywhere. everywhere you look, everywhere you go, you will see your field teams out there flying across the globe, trying to find out exactly what it is your customers want, what your customers need. They're trying to figure out how to move people through the sales funnel and help them solve their problems. A lot of meetings, and you'll notice in this picture, there's both virtual and in-person meetings going on right now, which is great. We're getting back out and we're rebuilding those relationships. The problem that your field team is having is they still, with all this travel and everything going on, they still feel isolated. So we've heard of the mental health crisis and the great resignation and everything that's happening right now in our world. And the pandemic makes you feel isolated. And it's even worse for your sales team. Sometimes us developers don't realize what being alone does to a very outgoing, boisterous sales organization because we're a little more introverted. And when they feel isolated, the sales team, they don't know who to ask for help. They don't know who the experts are in your company. They don't know how to find them. They're nervous in front of customers, whether they're talking virtually like you and I are today, or they're sitting in the seat beside them on site. They are nervous about not having the correct answers and a verified solution that we have tested and we're really sure of. Time zone differences make it hard to connect in real time, and there's lots of pressure on them because oftentimes they are right in front of the customer. They're what everybody sees. And so whatever we can do as a development team to try to help solve these problems, because let's face it, we want to make sure that our companies are successful because we're a part of that family. And we want to make sure that we do things that help. So if we know where the field team is, they're kind of all over. Where are the developers? And so we'll look at it at a market view, because oftentimes the market view of where developers are fits pretty close to where they are in your organization. If you're a smaller organization, your team may be co-located in one location. But even the smallest of companies nowadays are having developers everywhere in the world, right? Largest concentration in the United States. I know several friends who are building offices in Latin America and who have Indian offices. Those have been around for quite some time. And then China, offices in China continue to grow. So these are four big places where developers are. And here are some demographics about what developers, how their lives are, right? Median age is 34. That age was 45 years old 8 years ago. And so that median age continues to drop as more people come in to be developers based on the demand put on the industry. Worldwide, developers have been the base of developers has been growing exponentially, and it's slowed. It's still not going to grow fast enough to meet demand, and we'll get to that in just a second. We're increasingly seeing more female developers with some focus on some great groups like Women Who Code and Girls Who Code. So our friends over there are doing a great job bringing in more female developers, and 84% of developers believe that the robots and the AI that we build will not turn against us. Personally, I don't aspire to that, but that's neither here nor there. Most developers, just over 50%, have advanced degrees, showing you that a lot of developers come into the industry through non-collegiate means, which I think is accurate. And then 92% have taught themselves a new language or framework. Developers are learners. We have to, because technology changes so fast. So it's just part of who we are, and that's borne out right here in the slide. Now, knowing this, you can kind of get a sense that if our field teams are everywhere, our developers are kind of everywhere, which is good, but not often in the same places. Also, developers are in high demand, right? It is a huge thing right now to see developers moving everywhere, right? With a lot of software companies becoming completely virtual, you're going to start to see more and more of these developers just move everywhere, and the demand continues to grow. The demand is growing right now. There are 5 job openings for every currently employed software developer, but only 8% of STEM graduates are in computer science. So all of this growth is being fed outside of your typical computer science pathway. And you look on this thing over here and you see how critical developers are to every company. And software, being as complex as it is, requires those developers to help your field teams out. So with great power comes great responsibility. Thank you, Spider-Man. And if you look at the shortage of developers, I'm going to update this slide for my next webinar because that red less than 5 years has grown a little bit. So over the last 3 years, I've been showing the growth of developers worldwide. We've had a few more surveys go out over the past year, and we've noticed that as the world went more digital, people saw the demand for developers go up because every company is a software company. I don't care if you're an insurance company, you probably have a couple thousand developers working there. And this shortage of developers with 10 years experience, as you notice, a lot of the developers are starting to retire. This whole idea of the great resignation or great retirement, coming at the end of COVID, a lot of people are retiring or changing jobs. And as that happens, there's an influx of developers, but they're all at the low end of the experience spectrum because they're new, which makes sense. But as complicated as development is, we have to understand that as those situations don't get easier, they're getting even more complicated with cloud storage, APIs, automation, and that thing. We have to be real cognizant of where we are with our developers and understand that it's a up and down thing. Our field team is the same way. They see this. They see working on problems and it taking too long and everything. And they see these two states of the developers that 1 second their developers are super confident something's going to happen. And the next minute they're frustrated and they don't know what's going on. And that's what caused a little bit of this roller coaster emotions and seeing a lot of anxiety and mood or emotional disorders. And one of the surveys that just came out, I'm looking at it right here, 9.53% of developers responded, I do have an anxiety disorder. And then 8.9% said they had a mood or emotional disorder, like depression, bipolar, something like that, that's developed over the last few years. That holds true for a lot of us, right? Whether you're in the field or not. And so anything we can do on the development side to help support our field is great. So let's dive into it. And again, in terms of time, I know nobody wants to sit around for an hour and listen to me talk. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to keep this to 30 minutes, right? And we're, 12-ish minutes in. I'm going to try to wrap this thing up in the next 15 minutes. So last time we met, we've discussed Jana left for a new job. And you see Scott in the background. He had all these questions. The remote team had questions. Her experience with her. None of her experience was kept within the company where it should have been. And Scott was anxious. He needed help. They hired a new developer, one of Jana's friends, Amani, and she came in. Jana shared with her this new idea of a coding dojo, a place where you can capture your team's knowledge, share it within the team, and continue to grow the team. It's a super simple thing. You have a question, you write in the question, you get an answer. It's within your company walls. All your information is safe. You're good to go. And so Jana helped Amani set that up. And the team's knowledge began to be captured. It began to be put to work. And then I want to start to tell the story of the field side. So we covered the development side, but if you look at the field, I want you to meet Charlotte. She is the vice president of field operations for Acme Corp, right? Her team's giving a big presentation, we'll say in Bracknell, my friends in the UK, and she knows things are going to go great. However, she's helping a team on the West Coast, so she doesn't have time to help this one. So Stephen gives her a call saying he's got a question. Stephen's running point for her over there. He's an SE. And he has this real technical question. And Charlotte says, I'm not really sure. Really, you should ask engineering to figure out if this is something we can't do, configure, whatever. It's a configuration question. So Stephen says, okay, I'll take it from there. I think I know what to do. So they hang up the phone. And Stephen walks into his office, has a seat, and begins composing an email to Jake, Annie, and Jeff. And he says, urgent, I need this help configuring something technically. I don't know what's going on. Again, if you'll notice, the body of this email may be hard to read on your side, but it says, I'm sorry for asking a question if it's been answered already or if it's been asked in the past. So this is going to speak a little bit to the anxiety of asking a question when you need help, because even just getting to the point to type this email, there's a little bit of, hey, I need some help. There's urgency. I'm nervous. I'm anxious going on. So he types this email. He says, okay, I've asked the team. Now I'm going to send it. So click send. The email goes away and he waits. And he waits. And as he's waiting, it dawns on him that, hey, it's not the middle of the day and people aren't at work back at the office on the East Coast. And so the time differences are starting to hit him a little bit there. And then he gets a little more anxious, upset, worried, whatever. He says, "Hey, did I really ask? Could the right people, could they really help me? Um, am I going to get my answer in time?" So he's going through this roller coaster of trying to find somebody to help. You can imagine he takes it from here and he tries to call a couple of them. Maybe it's just dinner time. And he tries to call them and he can't get through. Um, this type of reliance on real-time in-person communication is difficult for people. But know that in most companies, upwards of 85% of all questions asked through the day have already been answered. And there's 2 or 3 different studies that have been showing this, some from Stack Overflow, from Stripe, and some other ones. But knowing that, and there's a famous quote from HP that I love years ago, where they said if HP only knew what HP knows, we'd be able to accomplish anything. It's the idea that the knowledge re-asking and regurgitating the answer over and over again rather than storing it for access later, it's kind of a big deal. So I want to fast forward 6 months, right? I want you to look 6 months later, Charlotte's doing her annual analysis, or say, 6-month analysis, win-loss. So she pulls up her win-loss analysis, losing to competition, sometimes features, usability, and then she looks at these two, ease of configuration and help from the support and the SE team. And she thinks, that's a really bad reason to lose a deal, in that we can't help our customers. We had Steven on site. I'm frustrated. I want to fix this. I hate to lose. What can we do? And when talking with Steven said, well, I sent the email and I don't even know who to ask for help. I don't even know who's there. And so the idea of developer anonymity in a company really starts to take shape. So there's this network of humans out there that are all connected some way. And what's on your screen, this is a representation of what it looks like to people who aren't in engineering. And it can look that way even to engineering leadership. So if I'm in the field or I'm an executive or somebody else, I just see developers. I see this mass of people that are connected, and I don't know who they are. I don't know what they're experts in. I don't know who to ask for help. So oftentimes I just want to send an email either to the people that I know, which is what Stephen did, or I will send an email to an engineering manager or leader and ask him to go through and be the intermediary. And in a large company where you have 100 people on your field team, you don't want to send 100 emails in a single day to 1 or 2 people asking them for help and questions. It's better to have a system. And so let's imagine a world where this thing that you see on your screens in front of you has more information in it, that we can eliminate the developer anonymity, and there begins to be a little bit of clarity on who this person is. Armin, for example, and he's the architect of Tsunami. And Imani's a UI expert, and Scott knows data. But if you need help with installation, Ellen's the person to go to. That's where you can start to figure out. And Steven, if he had information like this in front of him, could have said, Jana was the configuration expert. I should have just sent an email to her. What's even better is, instead of sending the email, what if you had a place where you could find the answer on your own and know it was the right answer because Jana asked it? And let's look at that a little bit. So back to our story, Charlotte, she's upset. She's done this win-loss analysis. She comes into Armin's office and tells him. And Armin's he's an employee. He's all in. He's trying to help the company grow too. So he's not happy. He says, what can we do to fix this? They're working together. They're teammates. And Armin says, hey, I've got an idea. What if we created this place that could be the central point between our teams of collaboration and problem solving? You don't have to call me. You don't have to email me. We've got one place where we can put all the information on our technical solutions that your team comes up with. And if my team can help, that has all the setup and configuration information, our how-tos, our Q&A. And you think some people sitting in Armin's seat would say, well, why don't they just look at our documentation? Well, a lot of times, if you look at what's happened in the new Agile environment, is we cut documentation. Not a lot of companies spend the time and the money on old school documentation like we did in the late 90s and early 2000s with full documentation teams and the whole 9 yards. And so it's better to have a living place where this stuff can be updated and kept fresh for the people who need it. So you look at this central point and they have the conversation, says, we need to capture and share knowledge between the teams. We definitely need to have a place where you can ask questions to get answers, put out tutorials and how-tos. I even want my team, Charlotte says, to be able to share, hey, this is how I solved the problem the customer's having, because this other team over here needs to be able to find it because they're going to have the same issue. And we don't want to spend the time for them to solve it if it's already been solved, right? Let's stand on the backs of giants, so to say, rather than getting into this place where we're solving the same problems and spending the time and effort to do it, even though it's already been done before. They need to be able to get help quickly. Your field team wants the answers and they want it now. They don't want it in 10 minutes. They don't, I mean, there might even be in front of the customer, but they'll be able to wait and will be willing to wait to get a correct verified answer rather than getting the answer immediately. And we think that will increase customer adoption because, if the 85% of questions are asked already within the day and you capture those, that means 85% of the time somebody's just going to go to a system, type in a search and find the answer, which is awesome. So Charlotte gives it a thumbs up and says, hey, let's try this thing called Answer Hub. So Armin says, I will go and train the team. He prepares a training presentation and it says, hey, this is how we're going to be able to work better together and support each other in this global environment when we're not in the same place. Let's see how this is going to work. So he tells them this is better than old school documentation. This is articles, how-to tutorials, talks all about how this is going to work and how you can build documentation within the tool and see the navigation. You can see it there on the screen that there's a navigation pane. And over on that navigation pane, the documentation is clearly laid out where people can see exactly where to go, like an index in a book. You can solve problems together. You can ask questions, get answers, comment, like, share, everything you would expect on one of these social platforms. And when you answer your question, you're answering it once and everybody can see the answer. So it's not like locking that answer up in Slack. It's not like locking it up in your email system where only people who have that email can search for it. It's global. Everybody on both teams can benefit. And then you'll also get the benefit of knowing, you can see here, this answer is green. It's verified and an accepted answer from someone who knows what they're talking about, which is great. And somebody can come in later and make it a better answer if they have a better solution. So we know that it's live and it's up to date, and your team, your field team, will get the best information from us developers. It's awesome. Then you can find answers anytime you want. As you start to type a question, if you look here, you'll get autocomplete. So if you're looking for in-app notifications, I'll do that again. You can see that the autocomplete will drop down and try to find what you're looking for even before you hit enter. And then if you do hit enter, you get all these refined searching, this advanced search bar that comes up that allows you to search within different spaces or with certain tags so that you can get just the right information and start to narrow down what may be an ocean of information and make it available to you. This is all great. Don't need to go to email, don't need to go to phone calls or be anxious. All you have to do is go search. And everybody knows that we use Google nowadays, so let's try to find something. It's awesome. The next thing is, whenever you ask a question, you can collaborate on it. So you ask a question, type it in there, you get an answer. Here it's Amani. It says update line 6 to do this. And then Charlotte chimes in and said, hey, I had a customer with the same question, thanks, and gives it a like. And immediately, you know that you're getting answers to questions from the experts, verified, that you can use. And when you're on a customer site or your team's on a customer site, they have a higher level of support than trying to make sure everybody on the team is available in the moment. It's so much better. And the next thing, this one speaks right to the story of where Stephen was, right? How do I make sure that the instance is up and running? How can I configure it? What can I do? And if you look over here, I'll highlight it for you, that Ask an Expert button. You can hit that and he would immediately have seen that Jana is an expert on the configuration. And so he can immediately click on that and shoot her, not an email, but something in the tool where she gets a notification that says, hey, somebody needs your help on the field, right? And that's only if he searched for it and it wasn't already answered. And once Jana answers it, the next person would ask the question and it would be immediately available. This is the power of having a tool sit between your field team and your development team, no matter where they are in the world, and allow them to collaborate and move forward faster together. This is good stuff. So Armin asks, is there any questions? And Steven, he's here, he's all in. He says, yeah, how soon can we get this up and running? So they get the tool, Armin reconfigures it. They have some spaces set up so that the teams can ask each other questions, and they immediately begin using the tool. And here's the picture, and I'm going to end on this and we'll go to Q&A. I told you I'd keep it to half an hour. Here's a picture of what that looks like, right? You've got people sitting all over the world. Imagine Stephen is in the Bracknell again, right? You've got Joe somewhere over in, California. You've got Srini and Gabrielle in Turkey, Dubai, India, wherever you pick a place in between. And Armin is back home in Silicon Valley, right? And so this is where the team is. The tool itself, you have questions, you're on site, you look for that tool and you see it. You are able to get answers to those questions in real time. You're able to see that Armin is working on a knowledge base document, and he types and he publishes that document for everybody. Additional comments come in. Hey, I solved it this way. This worked for me. And Steven searches this time and is able to find the right answer. These are the things, and give them a like right there at the end. But this is how the team should work. It's not reliant on me picking up the phone or sending a text or an email to someone in real time, because they could be in bed, right? They could be on vacation. They imagine them doing something other than being sitting right in front of their machine. It also bleeds into this culture of sharing and this culture of teamwork where we capture things and we're not hoarding that knowledge because we've been taught for so long that knowledge is power. That's those who share knowledge. That's powerful, right? And sharing that with other people who are here going through the things that we're going through so that we can win together. So that's kind of where I wanted to end. And with teams that do this well, they see increased engagement among the team members because it's a great place to work. You're getting help, you're getting support, you feel like people know you. And according to Gallup, they say companies who can get this right see a 20% increase in sales because the sales team doesn't feel isolated. They feel supported by the technical team, and those two teams are working together to move the company forward. And this is awesome. So with that, thank you. I'm going to move into Q&A. I'll just bring this up real quick. If you have any questions, I know that we've got a couple on here and I'll get to in a second. You can always learn more at answerhub.com. You can fill out forms there. You can read some blogs and you can ask us questions. But I did want to address a couple of things. So if I look, let me look over in the question side. If we look at some of, the first question that we have is, this seems great, but how hard is it to implement? That's a great question. And I will say it's not an overnight solution. We've had customers who have begun to implement this. You can get it installed and up and running super quick. So think 48 hours. And then after the 48 hours, it's up and running, like over a weekend. You start on Monday, you have to import data and you have to start to build your knowledge base. And you may have some of that already in some old wikis or documentation, and you can import those. The important thing is consistency and growth. So I remember having a conversation with a customer. They said, hey, we only get 15 questions a day, but we've gotten 15 questions a day every day for the last 2 years. So they've got a huge base of knowledge now. And every time one of those questions was answered, somebody else finds it, that's a win, right? That means we've captured the right thing and we're not having to reinvent the wheel. So to answer your question, 48 hours-ish to get an install up typically, but then there's the importing and configuration, and that depends on your use case. So it's a great question. I don't really know who my field team is. Okay, that's a great question. If you don't know who your field team is, look at your org chart. Typically, if you're in an organization, if you're in a small team, you'll probably know who they are. You can walk over and say, hey, if you're on a larger team, you can look up the org chart or ask your manager and work around. But I'd encourage you to have a cup of coffee, send an email out, meet with them, see if this is something that would work for you. Because a lot of development teams use systems like this, but oftentimes we don't think, hey, this would be really cool if I pulled my field team in, and it'd keep the support team, for example, from walking over into my office to ask me questions during the day. We could capture that in one spot and they could get their answers there. That's what I would say. Go. I'm not sure, but I know they're there. So, all right. If one more question coming in. Okay. If we is this yes, this is a Q&A system like Stack Overflow, but it's private and you own your own data and it's within your own data system and it does some things that Stack can't do, like that expert identification thing. That cannot be done by Stack Overflow. So or any other tool that I know about. We have an internal algorithm that monitors the types of questions you ask, where you're at, and all that, and then it tags you as an expert. Or you can self-identify as an expert, which is what all the other tools do. But we have that extra level. So if you've got a 1,000-member team, it's super important to know who to ask the question to. And so we have a system by which you can get in and you can figure that out. All right. Any other questions? All right. I don't think we have any other questions. Drew, if you want to get back on, we can wrap up. And went 32 minutes with Q&A, so I tried to keep it short for y'all. I want to thank everybody once again for attending. It was great to see you. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse, for that informative presentation. I know I got a lot out of it, and I'm sure all of the attendees did as well. So DZone would like to thank you. DZone would also like to thank AnswerHub for providing our audience with this great webinar. And lastly, thank you to everyone who attended today. We hope you learned something new that will help you in your developer career. Have a great day.